Hey NAI football fans, Corey Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIFBALL Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, this is Corey Thorpe back with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, brought to you by and powered by AdCraft Sports, custom apparel, and merch. Since 1974, they've been there for you. You heard it in the ad read. You don't want to hear me rehash it, especially because we've got St. Xavier head coach Mike Feminis today. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I got to start with a food related item here. I'm a little food driven.
My
Um,
favorite topic.
so tell me, Coach, is Chicago style pizza really pizza, or is that just a pie?
Well, it's pizza for us. I don't know how it is for the rest of the country, but it's pizza for us, and pretty darn good.
What's your favorite topping?
Sausage and mushroom.
Do you do the Chicago dogs as well with the pickle spear and all that jazz?
Sure. I'm not an onion guy though.
Not an onion guy.
Yeah.
I've never been up to Chicago. I got to get up to Chicago at some point, and you know
If you do, I'll take you to lunch and dinner.
what's your favorite spot to go get a what's the pizza place?
Oh God, there's so many, but our go-to is Palermo's on 95th Street.
Excellent. I know that a lot of those regional foods we talked about with Coach Oliver last week from Georgetown about Cincinnati style chili. I know a lot of the regional foods have some really heated rivalries between who's got the best of which. So I know declaring a side there is not an easy task sometimes. Well,
Yeah, I'll take our food over anybody.
heck yeah. So, Coach, looking over your schedule from a year ago, y'all started out with a whale of a schedule. And, John and I didn't know if y'all were going to be able to claw back, but claw back you did. You started out the season with 5 consecutive games against teams who were either receiving votes or were from a higher league of play. Talk to me about starting the season off and getting battle tested like that.
Well, I don't know if I'm right or wrong with this, but I've never been hung up on a record. Having to go undefeated and all that stuff. Um, this will be going on year 25, and I choose to play as tough a schedule as we can. And the mid states is tough enough, and then you got the crossovers with the great teams from the east. But I'm always looking for challenges, and I know what can possibly happen with that. When it comes to the national rankings and things like that. But I've always felt like playing a University of Indianapolis, whether they play the Illinois State or Wisconsin Whitewater, Northwest Oklahoma, schools like that. Um, I'd rather play those games and lose than play an opener and against somebody that you're going to dominate. 'Cause I don't know if you learn much by winning a game 50-0. So I'm not going to change. I prefer it that way. And my bottom line for 24 years now is, ultimately, if we end up winning, your conference, you're pretty much guaranteed of getting an automatic bid to the playoffs. I mean, our conference certainly will always do that. And then from there, it's up to you to take advantage. Look at what Kaiser did. Kaiser had a very similar situation. They played hellacious first 3 games, and ended up winning out in their league, and obviously they make a great run in the playoffs. So it's just a different, everybody's got their own philosophy on things, um, and again, I'm not real hung up on my winning percentage and things like that. I want us to play the best possible competition you can, and so that's the way we've gone about our business.
To that end, it's a conversation we've had with a lot of coaches on, especially now seeing what Kaiser was able to do with their three games against higher competition football. Um, do you think those games against like a University of Indianapolis, do you think those games should count for ranking in for the NAIA polls?
Well, here's my thought on it. One, I've been a Raider for uh, over 20 years now, and now I've been on what's called the oversight committee for the last 5 or 6. Um, I know my thoughts aren't necessarily shared with everybody, but my opinion is this: not so much the Division twos, because I think that the best NAIA schools, the top NAIA schools in most years, are going to be competitive with most of the top 25 D2s. That's the way I've always explained it. UIndy got us pretty good this year, but in the 3 previous times we played them, we beat them once, and the other 2 were very competitive games. Uh, I wouldn't necessarily use the D2 as an example per se. When you're talking about the scholarship FCS schools, if you go play in Illinois State or whatever, North Dakota, whoever it is. I never, when I was a Raider, I never dropped a team for losing to an FCS school, and I don't care, a scholarship FCS school. So I'm not talking about the non-scholarship ones, but I never dropped a team from losing to an FCS school. And then you also always take in consideration if you're playing, a top Division II school. If you go play a Grand Valley State or Ferris State or something like that, and get beat, I wouldn't drop a team. But everybody has a different outlook on it. Some coaches just think, hey, a loss is a loss and a win is a win, and I've never felt that way, because I do think there is something to strength of schedule and playing good people in your non-conference schedule if you choose to do so, and I don't think you should be harmed by it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Talk to me about how good St. Thomas was. I mean, that team was. I mean, that was a shocker to me coming into y'all stadium and delivering a fairly convincing win there.
St. Thomas is a good football team. They're very good, and I give Coach credit for coming down and doing a 1 year deal with us, because it's one of those. Though the Florida schools are having a very hard time finding non-conference games, because there's only whatever, there are 6 or 7 of them down there, and it costs them a lot of money to to come here for a year. And then they obviously, I think they had a guarantee game the week before that, which helped out. We've done our own. I had to do a ton of fundraising about 5 6 years back to make 2 trips down to Florida 2 straight years, and it's one of those things. Everybody has a different situation. My guess is the Florida schools and maybe some others uh, have it already in their budgets to have some of these travel games. And my guess is they probably need to do that, to have to do it to function. We're in a situation where it's always been tough for us to get non-conference games, but I also have to consider the fundraising stuff that we have to do at St. Xavier, whether it be facilities or anything else. So it's one of those situations. At that time, 5 6 years ago, I was able to do it. Now we're in a situation where we've got some other needs at St. Xavier that needs my attention from a fundraising standpoint. So that's why we're looking. We're looking for some closer games. In the future. But we're locked in this year. We got 10 right now, and we're able to cross over and then add an extra crossover to our schedule this year. So we open up at St. Francis, Indiana, at Marion, then home against Indiana Wesleyan. So those
Oh,
are
geez.
our first three. So that'll be fun.
Oh my gosh, you're running the gauntlet basically. The only one you ain't got on that first three is Concordia out of the traditional Mideast gauntlet. That's going to be really interesting with an Indiana Wesleyan team without Coach Langs there, with their new coach, the offensive coordinator from Morningside.
Yeah, I texted Coach Ryan right after that. I said thanks a lot, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I know you
So
definitely appreciated that.
I'm sure they won't skip a beat. Indiana Wesleyan is certainly one of those schools where they're very well funded, and their facilities. I haven't been there yet, but just from what I've heard and from what I've seen, they're probably as good as any at our level, and probably as good as most at the D2 level, and even some FCS schools.
I've seen the videos, and I'm sitting there going, that's really well done.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
y'all turned it around off of a 1-2 start there, and you're 2-2 heading into Midwest play, and you hit the ground running. You take the rest of your division by storm. You come back. You win the division. And I know you had said that, I'm not about winning percentage, but I do want to point out that in the history of collegiate football, there have been less than 100 people in the 140 some odd years that collegiate football has been played that have accomplished the 200 win mark. And you are now one of them. So I do want to say congratulations. You
Thank you,
passed Mike Van Diest. From
my guy.
so from an NAIA perspective, that's a really that's saying something.
Well, I appreciate it. And unfortunately, the W's go under one name, but the reality is, it's the players that win games for you, and we've had a ton of great ones. And then besides that, I think every head coach will say this, but your assistant coaches do 99.9% of the work, and that's always been a reality for us. My offensive coordinator, Mark Hannell, has been with me from day one. And the vast majority of our staff are, football alums, guys have been close with the program for forever. So we've been very fortunate with what we have at SXU, and it's a compliment to all the guys that have played for us and the coaches that have been here.
So, Coach, looking back at your schedule, I swear, y'all gonna stop scheduling University of St. Francis for that last game. Y'all got to start putting them away early and not making so much drama. But I'm here for it as long as you have them scheduled last, because that's becoming an instant classic game every time you play them.
Well, it's certainly a special game for me personally. It holds, in some ways more weight than any other, because it's my alma mater. I was there for 13 years. I was on their first football team in 1986, and I started coaching right afterwards. And they gave me my first full-time opportunity back in 1994, and so I was there as an assistant from 90 to 98. So their athletic director is one of my best friends. He's my former roommate, and Coach Curry, I coached. So there's just a lot of relationships there. So it's a very difficult game for me personally. I can't wait for it to be done. I will always say this. I've said this for 20 some years now. I hope they go 10-1 every year. And the reality is we've certainly been fortunate to be on the winning end of it, but I think I want to say 6 of the last 7 games have come down to the last quarter, last 5 minutes, whatever it is. I mean, they've all been 7 points or less, and that's just going to be the reality of that game. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the last game this year. I think we're in a new scheduling cycle, and I think, matter of fact, I know it's more in the middle part of the year, and because Coach Curry, he already let me know that's going to be their homecoming this year.
Oh,
So I said,
geez.
well, that's fantastic news too. And but it's a fun game to play in. for our players. I'm not sure I would term it as fun, because it's always bittersweet at the end. I always tell them beforehand, I'm going to try to beat your brains in, and then afterwards you're happy, but you're also you feel bad for people that you really care about.
Yeah, the last time that y'all had 2 consecutive seasons of beating them by multiple scores is 2013-2014 with a 37-25 win and a 28-13 win. The only game since then that's been multiple scores was 2018's 44-28 win. Otherwise, they've been all absolute instant classics from that point there. Well, Coach, there's always been a dichotomy of sorts between at least fans between the Mideast and the Midwest of the mid states, and you've got the gauntlet of the Mideast, and honestly, the Midwest is no better with the teams that you've got to play. And now we've got a little bit of moving around as MOBAP is going to head off to the heart to backfill some teams there with some moves being made there. Talk to me about the overall direction of the Mid States Football Association and kind of where you see it going.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's always been interesting because we started out in the West. So you go back to 1999, and we played in the West from 99 to 2006. And then because there are so many Chicago schools, and at that time you had schools from as far away as Geneva, Pennsylvania,
Oh, geez.
in the league. So sometimes when teams were leaving, or new teams coming in, it was a situation where they used the Chicago schools to kind of balance things out. So we actually played in the East from 2007 to 2012,
Oof.
and to be honest, I mean, and that was a gauntlet too, because you had Ohio Dominican was really, really good when they got in. So you had Ohio Dominican, you had St. Francis, Indiana in their heyday. Marion was becoming a power, and so that was a gauntlet too. And we were fortunate. We probably had we had our best teams. We had some incredible teams in that time that we won the conference we won that side 3 to 6 years, and that was the year one of the years we won the national championship, and I think 4 of the other 5 years we went to the semifinals. So, and then once a couple other teams came in, we got moved back to the West. When Grandview and William Penn left, we got moved back to the West in 13. But the reality is the history of the mid states is it's kind of fluctuated between the strengths. There have been years where the West has been stronger. There's been years the East has been stronger. There have been years where they've been pretty darn close. There's no doubt. I think the East overall in the last 5-6 years has been the stronger side, especially with the emergence of Concordia, and you get Indiana Wesleyan coming in, and Siena has always been good. But I do think that the gap was kind of closing a little bit last year, and I think you saw that in some of the crossover games. Now with that, we are in a situation with Missouri Baptist leaving now, and Roosevelt going Division II, where you're going to have an imbalance. So it's something that's already been discussed. It's in the works to move one of the Indiana schools over to balance out the leagues, which would probably happen as soon as 2024, I believe. So I know there's discussion going on right now. My hope, honestly, my hope from a geographic standpoint, I think Marion's the most logical from a geographic standpoint to come over to the West. But I certainly don't make that decision. I can make the recommendation, but I don't make that decision. That's going to be decided by people above me. So I guess we'll see where it's at. But I think we'll probably have more answers by our time our spring meeting happens in May.
Yeah, that seems about right for you to take the Marion out of Indianapolis. You've got so many other schools in Indiana that kind of makes some sense there.
And the thing you can do with it, you could, no matter how you shake it, whichever, it likely has to be an Indiana school, but you could do it. I've been on kind of the scheduling committee since the year 2000. So you can make it so the crossover games work where, they could play we could have them cross over all three of their games against their Indiana rivals, so you can do some stuff to accommodate them. Just kind of like when we were in the East, we were still able to play, I think, all the Chicago teams one way, shape, or form. So it'll be workable.
Excellent. So let's take a look at your team from last year. You return a lot of good pieces on your offense, starting at your quarterback with Stuart Ross. You got him coming back. You've got Mario Price coming back at running back. You've got Kyle Quinn coming back at receiver. You've got a lot of spots coming back, all conference offensive linemen and Alex Pavlov. Talk to me about getting even better on offense.
Well, I think we have a chance to be a lot better on offense. You mentioned Stu, who's been a very solid quarterback for us. He's won us 2 conference championships, and yet we also realize that we have a very high standard here. At that position, and we've had some unbelievable ones. So we brought some competition there. We had 2 transfer quarterbacks come in. We've had a great recruiting class coming in so far. You have the situation with a Justin Pringle where you're not sure if he may or may not come back. So if Justin does come back, you got an All-American type of talent coming back. Mario Price was our newcomer of the year. He's a really dynamic talent that can play running back or receiver. It's going to kind of depend on what happens with the guys returning. Amari Venerable was another one that you had managed. Amari was our all-conference running back the year before, but he was hurt the entire year until week 10. So, if he ends up coming back, you got another playmaker there. But Kyle Quinn had an outstanding year. He's a very, very good athlete. Brant Hickson is an outstanding player as well. And if we keep him healthy all year, because he was kind of bothered by the injured bug last year quite a bit. He's definitely one of the top receivers in our conference too. So we've got weapons. We've also offensive line. We lose Jeremy Widmeyer, who's a big loss for us. But we also get back probably maybe our best offensive lineman, Colin Cox. He was slated to be our starting left tackle a year ago, and then he tore his ACL in our fourth day of summer camp. So he'll be back 100%. You mentioned Alex Pavlov. Alex is a really good player, so we're looking to him for him to take the next step too. So we should be really good offensively. I think spring ball is going to be really interesting with some of the competition that's going on at some positions from an offensive standpoint. But I anticipate that we're going to be really good.
Defensively, it's kind of a tale of 2 parts of your defense where you've got 3 really good DBs coming back. And I swear, if Kevin Countryman could catch half of those pass breakups, he'd be leading the NAI in interceptions. With 6 interceptions and 12 PBUs there. You've got a really good defensive backfield between Countryman, Carroll, and Barnett coming back, but you lose a lot on your front 7. And I know you don't know the status of all of those guys on your front 7, but talk to me about replacing defensive line could be the second most important position on the field behind offensive line.
Sure. Well, you potentially lose 2 big ones because Jaleel Holloway and Peyton Campbell, they've been 2 of the very best, if not the 2 best defensive linemen on our side for 4 or 5 years now. Peyton's done. He's a big loss for us. Jaleel still deciding whether he's going to end up coming back to play or not, but he's graduating in May. And so again, in one sense, we were very fortunate last year. Joey Markosovic at this time a year last year was he was beat up. He had a full-time job. He was all set to move on with his life. He has a degree, and then he came to me in March and said, "Coach, I got the itch again." So, which which I guess that helped a little bit when you get an All-American middle linebacker coming back. But that's kind of where college football is right now on every level. And besides the transfer portal and NLI and all that stuff, you still got this, the bonus COVID year going for another year. So we are in just a crazy, crazy period in college football that I'm not sure we'll ever see again. But it's really hard to manage your roster and not sure who's going to be here. Now, I mean, shoot, the FBS guys, their coaches got to be looking at their roster 10 times a day because guys are in, guys are out. This guy leaves for the transfer portal. I sign another one because all it is free agency is hit college football. So guys they might as well make trades for God's sakes. That's about what's going on. But it's trickled down to our level. So I mean, I mentioned earlier, 3 or 4 kids, maybe 5 kids that are in that situation where not sure if they want to come back or not, or get on with their lives. So it's just a very interesting situation. But you're right. The defensive line is an area that we certainly got to replenish. But our secondary is certainly a strength. Kevin Countryman is definitely a playmaker. He's not real big, but he's a really smart kid. He's pretty athletic, and he's just he's a football player. He's just a football player. Ron Carroll, I think, is one of the top talented athletic safeties, definitely in our conference, if not the country. And Tyler Burnett, we moved permanently from a corner standpoint to safety, and he really took off last year. So, and he's definitely going to take another step forward. So we're very happy with where we're at in the secondary. We lose Joey, who's one of the top linebackers we've ever had here, but that is actually a position where depth-wise we're pretty fortunate. We have some really good guys who you may not have heard of, but they're going to get an opportunity now. So I think we should be really solid there. And but yeah, I think like you said, right now we got to replenish the defensive line and some young guys that are going to really need to step up. We're going to need whether it's a transfer to come in and help us or an incoming freshman. That right now that would probably be my biggest area of concern.
Honestly, you mention it. If NAIA football is not a even better product at the end of 2024, 2025 than it was when we came into 2020, then coaches should almost about be ashamed of themselves, because with all of the transfers that are coming down, because coaches are getting an ability from the higher levels to purge their rosters a little bit of unwanted players and trickle those down to the NAI level, and you're getting a higher quality of player with a higher football IQ. Plus, you've had all these COVID years where you've been able to stockpile a little bit of depth and matriculate it through your program a little slower. If we're not a better league at the end of 2024, 2025, we've done something terribly wrong.
Yeah, I think NAI football it's great football. I mean it is, and I've always had the viewpoint of there's FBS and then maybe FCS and then there's everybody else. I mean, we have definitely had years where I take our best teams and I think we go beat the best D2s in America. But I think when you're talking about the D2s, the NAIAs, and even some of the top D3s, in a given year, I think we could all beat each other, and that's why and the reality is this. I use this when we recruit all the time. Everybody knows about Alabama and Georgia and Michigan and all of the big guys, but if you ask the average Joe on the street, who won the FCS national championship or the D2 or the NAI, the D3, most people don't know that, and and a national championship is a national championship, and there's only 5 of them every year. So I know when we won ours back in 2011, it turned our campus and the South Side of Chicago upside down. It was a huge deal, and it's a huge deal at a lot of these smaller towns where the football program, and the basketball and the athletic programs are everything. So I've always loved small college football. I think I've been a part of the NAI forever, since 1986, and it's a great brand of football. And I agree. I think it's only going to get better. I really do.
Well, Coach, if you're not improving, you're falling behind. It doesn't matter whether it's a football team. It doesn't matter if it's your own personal walk with Jesus. It don't matter. That's just the way life functions. So, what area of your program, on or off the field, are you really looking to improve this upcoming season?
Well, I mean, if you say, I don't know if I would say a specific area, but I would say from an expectation level, um, our goal is to play for national championship every year. That's our goal. So, and I don't want to minimize, winning the conference championship and making the playoffs, because I think that there's most schools that would love to be in that position. There's only probably a handful that you can say are in that same situation. But the reality is we've won our conference last 2 years, and we've gotten beat pretty bad in the first round of the playoffs, and that's just um, that's not going to work for me. So we have, we've talked to our guys about that. We always talk about being accountable and being responsible, and looking in the mirror, and if you're doing everything you possibly can to in the weight room and conditioning and the classroom, everything to give yourself an edge to give us the best possible chance to win football games on Saturday. Are you doing everything that you can in your power to do it? And that goes for the coaches too. I mean, that's we evaluate ourselves every single year, and the way I look at it, if we're if we're losing the first round for the last 2 years, it all starts with me. So I've certainly looked in the mirror, and it's kind of work in progress, exactly where the things that we need to uh, improve upon. But I will say we are off to a great start. We were fortunate a couple of years ago to add a full-time strength and conditioning coordinator for our department. Um, and Jamie and his assistant Murph have done a great job with all of our athletes. But I think it's been a big boost for our program specifically. So guys are working hard; they're chomping at the bit, and like I said, I can't wait for spring ball to start.
I know it's just around the corner. It'll be here before you know it. And to me, honestly, the summer's the worst waiting of
Yeah.
all. But um, we're so thankful to have you on. We can't wait to see what the MSFA, especially the Midwest, is going to do. You've got a lot of teams that are making really nice progress over there, and having that 3-4 way, depending on when Roosevelt moves over. I can't remember if they're moving over this year or next. But having that three-way challenge between St. Xavier, St. Francis, and Olivet Nazarene is always makes for good football. No matter when you get it.
No, it does, and we're all so close in proximity that um, those are fun games to play. I mean, those are area rivals, and um, the schools get into it, the fans get into it, and they're great atmospheres, and so yeah, it's everything that you look forward to for really really good quality Saturday afternoon of small college football.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIAF Ball Podcast presented by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to Leading Edge Fundraising for their support of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast as well as to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFBALL and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.